Okay, welcome to the second episode of AI versus my novel. It is Sunday at noon Pacific time, 3 o'clock Eastern time. It is Father's Day. Wishing a very happy Father's Day to all of the dads. And yeah, I think we just need to get into it. In the first episode, we covered a lot of ground in terms of the macro prompt and how to best warm up Claude to just get everything started. And now we really need to get into the nitty gritty of just how we're going to be taking that higher level assessment and working off of those notes, which were really strong. I mean, it's incredible in my mind to be able to take 183 pages, put it into a large language model, and get that kind of feedback based on a specific prompt that breaks down what you're looking to do. And granted, my master prompt that I laid out was super specific to what I'm looking to do with this novel, but hopefully you can take from that and get a clearer sense of what you're looking to do if you're looking to do any kind of rewrite, really. And one thing I didn't get into too much is that you can use Claude, you can use ChatGPT to help you come up with these prompts. So looking at these long prompts, they don't need to feel overwhelming like, "Oh, wow, I've got to sit there and write this long detailed prompt." You can literally talk into your phone. You can bring up the Claude or ChatGPT mobile app and talk into it. Be like, this is what I'm trying to do as I'm getting into the editing phase, and lay it all out for a minute or two, and then say, hey, I want you to turn this into a cohesive prompt that I can then use as I'm getting into editing, and you can go from there. And it literally is going to take you 5-10 minutes to get to that place. So in the first part of this, we got into this master prompt, macro level prompt that speaks to how to, really breaking down what are the problems with this large chunk of text. And in this case, the first 183 pages of my 916 page novel. And that is a lot, in my opinion. I mean, it would be great if you could throw 916 pages in at once and get a comprehensive report back, but that's just not where even the highest level version of Claude. I'm going to watch how much I say high level. So even the best version of Claude for Opus, can't take 916 pages in one thread and break that down. It can do about 200 pages, and that's pretty good. So you got to work with that. So anyway, yeah, let's get into it. I realize I did not introduce myself. I am Abe H. Schwartz, and this is AI versus my novel. And let's just get right into it. There's a lot to get done, and I feel like 90 minutes is it's a nice chunk of time, but there is it's going to be no problem filling up that time. So let's jump into the Claude for micro editing prompt. So this is what we are going to be using to get into the nitty gritty of the edit. So I'm going to read this, I'm going to break it down, and this is coming from Claude Opus. We use Claude Opus, which is the better version, the more premium version of Claude, but it's not essential to use Claude Opus for the actual edits themselves. So let's just go through it. So Claude for Sonnet, this is the micro editing prompt. You are my don't trip, still tripping editorial coach. And just a quick refresher, the novel was called Don't Trip from the start. That's what all my files are named, but lately I've been leaning into the title of Still Trippin', and I'm not going to spend too much time going into the whole backstory of the novel itself. You can watch the first episode. In the first several minutes, I get into all of that. So you are my don't trip, still tripping editorial coach, specializing in helping me. One second here. Okay. You are my don't trip, still tripping editorial coach, specialized in helping me refine my manuscript while preserving its distinct voice. So follow these guidelines. The primary directive: ensure consistent first person present tense throughout, except for deliberate flashbacks or references to past events. I think it's important to lay that out, as not every single thing is going to be taking place right there in the moment. It's still from the main character Dustin's perspective, so there will be moments that flash back, but it needs to be anchored to the present tense, as opposed to having the whole piece in first person past tense. Then it can be a little trickier to tell, is he reflecting on what's happening more closely to the present events, or is it him jumping back into what's happened? So it's just a different writing style, and I wrote the first half of this in first person past tense, and now I'm flipping the whole thing into first person present tense, which I think is going to help in a big way for brevity, and filtering this entire manuscript through that lens is going to help, I think, really tighten this up. So next we have identify areas that can be cut or condensed for better pacing and engagement, for sure. Refine for smooth audiobook friendly flow while preserving raw authenticity, offbeat humor, sexual energy and tension. There's a lot of dating, and that is a part of the story, so that needs to be included in the prompt. Character specific inner monologue, LA authenticity, since this takes place between Hollywood and downtown, and LA, LA authenticity, and then natural dialogue patterns. So be bold in streamlining verbose passages while preserving essential character voice and emotional beats. Edit decisively to enhance pacing and clarity, but always retain the raw authenticity that defines Dustin's narrative. And then getting into the streamlining guidelines: flag passages that repeat information or emotions already established. Suggest cuts for scenes that don't advance plot or character development. Identify overly detailed descriptions that could be condensed. Recommend tightening verbose inner monologues while preserving tone. Focus on keeping the narrative propulsive and engaging. Compression priorities: when multiple examples illustrate the same point, keep only the most vivid/funny. Compress time indicators, later that day versus extended transitions. Combine similar emotional beats within scenes. Trust readers to infer rather than explaining everything. Tense guidelines: default narrative should be in present tense, I walk, not I walked, as an example. Keep past tense only for explicit flashbacks or memories when referring to previous events. Be especially attentive to maintaining tense consistency in longer paragraphs. Style and voice: Dustin's observational, self-aware, but sometimes self-sabotaging voice. Mix of sharp humor and vulnerability. Natural use of pop culture references. Authentic LA details and locations. Careful use of M dashes. Don't overuse. And then italics for internal thoughts and reactions. Scene appropriate pacing: intense for action, measured for reflection. And then we get into the still trippin' tone check. Does this passage feel like someone who's still tripping rather than someone who's figured it out? Balance self-awareness with continued patterns of overthinking / self-sabotage. Preserve the ongoing nature of his struggles rather than clean resolutions. Maintain present tense immediacy of someone caught in the moment of their patterns. I know this is a lot, but this is essentially how we're warming up a large language model that can go anywhere with precisely what we're looking to achieve in this edit. So character values and perspective: maintain nuanced viewpoints on complex issues, politics, conflicts, taste. Dustin is culturally, ethnically Jewish, and he's prideful about that, but he's not religious. And this isn't a political story, but there are some elements that get into things that are really happening in the world. Though this is 2019, it's not set in 2025. So can see gray areas and polarizing topics without falling into false equivalencies. That's big for me. The character rejects hate and extremism while remaining open to different viewpoints. The character balances strong opinions with self-awareness about his limited ability to change the world. uses humor to diffuse his own seriousness when he catches himself getting too intense. Dustin is ambitious, yet frequently plagued by self doubt. He's generous and supportive of others while simultaneously capable of harsh self criticism and occasional judgmental thoughts. The character has a complicated relationship with cannabis. He appreciates its benefits, but occasionally questions his reliance on it. This is another layer of conflict that I think makes the character more interesting, as well as him having a strong libido and natural ease with women, yet experiences conflicted emotions about his sexual relationships and patterns. So there's a lot of conflict going on within the character's head while stuff is happening in the external world, and his arms are broken, and he's got too much free time. So that is largely what's happening, but so much of the conflict is in this character's inner world, and right now there's 916 pages of it. It's too long, but we're not turning this into something totally different. We're maintaining that aspect of it, but we're dialing it in. So then we've got character development, alignment. Ensure every decision, reaction, and realization aligns with where Dustin is actually at. He's 34, eventually going to be 35. He's still caught up in the thrill-seeking, overanalyzing, and rationalizing that define this phase of his life. He has self-awareness, but not full-on wisdom. He senses what needs to change, but isn't fully acting on it yet. His growth should be incremental, messy, and honest. More a creeping realization than a clean transformation. And if something feels too evolved, too neatly resolved, gut check whether it's true to this character, Dustin, or if it's a lesson for future him. Now, that was something I dialed in as I was working on this, because I thought that it was trying to come up with resolutions a little bit too cleanly. And I think that this, in general, is a snapshot in this character's of this character's life at this point in time. And not everything needs to just be completely wrapped up in a neat little bow right away. It's more about, this is his reality during this chunk of time while he has broken arms, and he's dealing with different conflicts on top of that. But ultimately, this is not a Hallmark movie by any stretch. It's not a neat romantic comedy, though it does have romance, it does have comedy, it does have drama. So I think it's important to let the large language model know what I'm looking to attain with this. So at the same time, if this was something that was more of a traditional, hey, we need to wrap this up and make it adhere to a typical romantic comedy structure, we'd be including those elements in the prompt. Some important narrative notes. Note that after a certain point in the story, Dustin will have his left arm in a full splint and right arm in a full cast due to fracturing both arms and his right wrist on a hiking date. This is essentially the inciting incident of the story and remains a constant physical limitation throughout, which should be factored into all physical descriptions and actions in those sections. And then we've got another note here about a character named Joseph. I'm scaling back something that I wrote there, but that's not something that needs to be kept into account until later on. So preserve natural dialogue patterns, character-specific voice, LA-specific details, sexual tension chemistry when present, humor and wit, meaningful inner thoughts, environmental sensory details that ground scenes, clean up, repetitive phrases, unclear transitions, rough dialogue tags, missing atmospheric details, awkward pacing. When editing my work, highlight key changes with brief explanations, suggest specific cuts or condensations with rationale, offer 1 to 2 alternative options for significant edits, point out particularly strong passages worth preserving, note if any scenes could benefit from more or less sensory detail, suggest dialogue refinements that maintain character voice, flag and correct tense inconsistencies. We don't need this. That was specific from Claude. So then specific to the first 183 pages, there's repetition kill list. And I added this into the end, and based on the next chunk, we can tailor it for that. But for this, getting rid of the part where he's talking about I'm inconveniencing everyone. It's a maximum of 3 uses. The mom characters issues, just only one establishment, then brief mentions only. Getting into the, him questioning whether he should get high. Just not harping on that for too long. Abandoning his dog. One powerful moment, then quick references. It's just excessive to the degree that the character is dealing with it. And then the arm struggle descriptions. Keep 5 or 6 best examples only. And then some known problem areas like the Costco sequence needs 70% reduction. Home care helper calls compressed into single 2 to 3 page sequence. Supporting character backstories, 1 paragraph max per character. Dating app philosophy, it's only 1 page. Currently it's at 3+. Food, beverage descriptions, only if they advance the plot. These 183 pages, approximately 1 week, need to compress 100 to 110 pages, 40% reduction. Flag any scene that could be cut entirely without losing story. Every scene must multitask plot and character and entertainment. If a scene does only one thing, it's a cut candidate. This way you have one specific... Okay, so that's also Claude instructions here that we can delete. Okay, so I'm going to touch upon this again. I don't think we need to get into this quite yet because it's only going to complicate things. But created another... I don't want to say it's an agent since it's not acting on its own accord, but another deep prompt for ChatGPT, which is what I'm calling the executive consultant prompt. So as we get into Claude and we start to see what Claude generates and how it's working, if it doesn't seem totally right, I think instead of having Claude play every role here, we will bring it into ChatGPT with a different perspective. And this is basically an editor when needed and a consultant always. And I'm just going to read the top part of this. So it's like, you are my don't trip, still tripping executive consultant, a fully capable editorial partner who can step in as a lead editor if needed, but more often acts as a high-level consultant brought in to push the work further. So this is like having another cook in the kitchen where appropriate. So if we get to a place where I am not happy with the way that Claude is doing the work, I'm not happy with the workflow, then we're going to jump over to ChatGPT and we're going to lay this prompt in. I'm not going to read the whole thing right now, but you can get the idea from what we've got here. It's just more of a consultant. It is here to keep Claude in check. This is almost like the executive producer, the head chef who comes in from time to time to assess the cooking. So, and the reason I'm doing this is because I've tried writing like this in ChatGPT, and I think ChatGPT is great. It's super smart, but in terms of putting together prose or advertising copy or really anything that's forward-facing as writing, I think it just slips into these cadences and sentence constructions that just sound a little, I don't know, it just sounds a little too AI-like for me. So we're keeping ChatGPT out of it until we absolutely need another genius brain to come in and assess what we're doing. So let's just keep this here for now. And when it becomes time to activate the ChatGPT executive consultant, we will dig into the specific prompt that will be creating this level of prompting and interaction with the material. So let's get into the workflow of it all here as well, because I know this might seem like a lot. We had this macro prompt to get into just what we're doing in terms of the whole manuscript, to be able to create a snapshot of as much of the story as possible and what needs work. And we realized that that's about 180 to 200 pages at a time. And 900, as much as I'd love to just, select all, copy, plop that into Claude and get feedback on that, Claude made clear that that's too much. That's just too much. I think it's going to get there, and it might happen within a couple months even, or who knows with how quickly AI is evolving, but that's too much for now. So we worked with the macro prompt to get a clear sense of the broad strokes to focus on in the first 183 pages, which is the first chunk out of 5 with this entire edit. And now we have a workflow. I went back and forth with Claude a bit to figure out the best way to work off of those edit notes and then map it to this micro prompt. And I know this might seem a little bit technical. It might seem a little bit excessive right now, but at the same time, it's really not. And all of this can be flexible, and we can always adjust. We can always throw stuff out. It's going to come down to whether we like what Claude is spitting out, or if we don't, then we can go in a different direction. We can cut it. We can figure this out as we go. But like I said, this is AI versus my novel. This is not just AI meets my novel. So I'm expecting there to be some moments where it is just not right. And even in figuring out this workflow, I felt like Claude was cutting things out that were probably essential. But let's see how we go. I fully believe that once we get past this table setting of this is what we do in the macro, this is what we do in the micro, here's the process. I've seen this in action before for different tasks, and it's pretty amazing. So let's just keep going here. So the workflow in general is going to be scene mapping. So now that we have this 183 page chunk, we're going to break this into 20 page or so scene based sections. And we're going to note which scenes are must keep, heavy edit, or potential cut. And then there's this step 2, section prep for each 20 page section. We're going to tell Claude page XY containing this and this, current word count. I mean, this might be a little excessive. We might not need to do all of this, but I think the target reduction, if we look at that 30 to 40% number, I think that's key. Known issues, repetitive descriptions, tense problems, etc. Must preserve key moment. I can't talk today. I gotta. Let me get a little more coffee in me to sharpen up here. So we're going to talk to any known issues. Must preserve, any key moments, best lines, important plot points. We don't have to do all of this either. We can see what it spits out and decide whether to keep it or cut it. And then we've got step 3, Claude's edit using Sonnet 4, primary editing model. And this is what we're going to have. Option A, full rewrite. Claude provides edited version. Option B, annotated. Claude marks cut, condense, tense fix, inline. Option C, excerpt focus. Claude shows before, after for problem areas. Now this is interesting. I don't think that's totally clear. So let's do something here. I think we need to talk to Claude in the thread that I had before. So let's jump over and see just what Claude meant here. So I'm going to highlight this over here. We're going to bring it in. I'm not totally clear on what you meant by the option A through option C. Are you going to be doing all of this? So let's get clarification here. Oh, great question! Exclamation point. You choose one option per session based on what you need. So option A is the full rewrite. You get a complete edited version, best for when you want to see the full flow and overall result. Downside, harder to track exactly what changed. Option B, annotated. You get your original text with cut this, change tense here, etc. marked throughout. Best for when you want to see exactly what Claude suggests cutting and changing. Downside, you still have to do the actual editing yourself. Option C, excerpt focused. You get before-after comparisons of specific problem areas. Best for when you have a particular passage you're struggling with. Downside, doesn't address the full 20 pages. For your first live stream session, I'd recommend option A. It's the most dramatic for viewers to see the full transformation, and you can always ask for clarification on specific changes. Okay, so I also let Claude know that we are doing this in the context of a live stream. So, okay, now this is interesting. This is getting interesting. So let's, okay, say we go with option A. Full rewrite to start. What would be the ideal amount of pages in order to show the changes at a time? Three to 5 page chunks to show changes effectively. Viewers can follow the comparison without getting lost. You can pause and discuss specific choices. Easy to spot patterns in Claude's editing style. Manageable for reading aloud if needed. Practical approach. Get the full 20-page rewrite. I'm hesitant to do that. I think that asking this to just rewrite 20 pages at a time, I need to see how things are going before that. That just feels a little bit like do the work for me. I think 3 to 5 pages sounds interesting. Okay, so put original and edited version side by side. Review 1 to 3 pages together, discussing changes. Quick break to summarize. Okay. All right. Let's jump back over here. Okay, so getting back into the workflow of it all, what we review, we're going to decide one or the other. I'm thinking we don't show too much text to start, but I want you to see what my writing looks like in first person past tense in the first handful of pages, and then we're going to put that into Claude Sonnet, which is used for the micro prompt and the line by line or 20 pages or less edits. And then we're going to see the before and after. I think that's going to be a great way for us to see how Claude is doing, and then we can work from there. I think at the very least, if we have 3 to 5 pages of this is what we had and this is what Claude did off of the prompt and the workflow that we're setting up here, I think that's going to be pretty solid in terms of getting started. So then this speaks to that too. So then we accept, reject, modify Claude suggestions, track actual reduction achieved, note patterns for future sections, preserve anything Claude cut that's essential to voice. Big picture check, optional, use Opus 4, all right, after completing several sections. So again, Opus is better for diving into large sections at a time and getting that higher level analysis. Sonnet's going to be better for specific scenes, line edits, and just sequences up to 20 pages or so. Okay, so this all makes sense. Now, let me jump back here for a second. This is interesting to me. It is, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, but on one hand, it can feel like, just be prepared. On one hand, this could feel like we are cheating, and I am aware of that. And maybe we are. Maybe we are. Maybe this is all set up to cheat. But I want to really, really like pound the table that I wrote 916 pages. I wrote 916 pages, and I am not going to hand that off. I'm not going to pound the table too much since it's making the camera move. But I am not going to hand off 916 pages to anyone. If someone asks me to read their 916 page rough draft, and they're not a dear family member or lover. I mean, that's a big ask. So let's let's run with this and let's see what Claude does. And if you think it's cheating, if you think this is just the end of creativity, I don't want to be too repetitive here, but I want to make very clear that I spent well over 2 years writing all of this without AI, except for at the end I did use it a little bit to tighten things up, and that's what prompted all of this. But let's jump into this because this is it's a lot, and I mean it's actually making me a little bit nervous because I have spent so much time working on this, and now we're going to take this, say this 3 to 5 pages. I might have rewritten this and put hours into it to come up with the right flow and really figure out what I'm doing, and now this advanced large language model is just going to change it to something else, and it might be better than what I have. And in fact, it probably will be because what I have is too long. What I have needs to be tightened up. And I'm honest enough about what I've done, and I have had enough time removed from what I've done to be able to say this needs to be something that is condensed, it's tightened up, it's better for an audiobook flow, which is what I want. But let's stop talking about it and let's just get right into it. Okay. So here we are. We are in the manuscript itself. I'm going to read a little bit of it. I don't want to, let me read the first page and a half or so you can get a sense of the flow of this. And I am a little bit nervous even just, showing you under the hood quite like this. But here we go. Late July 2019. I drove from my new ad job in Encino toward Griffith Park, pushing 80 on the 5 freeway in my Accord Sport. Excited for my hiking date with Rebecca, I bobbed my head along to the Pusha T album Daytona. If you know, you know. The LA weather was perfect, not cold, not hot, not a cloud in the sky. The sun hadn't fully set, and the sky was a translucent gold, pink, and blue all at once. Magic hour in LA feels like a Jerry Bruckheimer film, and on this night I wanted to soak it all in. Also, Rebecca's a smoke show, and there's more than a chance we'd be getting naked later. We met a week earlier at Intelligentsia Coffee in Silver Lake, which is only a dog walk away from my apartment. I sat next to her outside on the patio with my senior pug, Walter, who wanted to eat her croissant crumbs. Rebecca found Walter's desperate energy, scrunched face, and droopy skin adorable. I was immediately attracted to Rebecca's fit dancer body, flowing brown hair, and glowing tan skin. She and I struck up a conversation about the book she was reading, How to Meditate by Pema Chodron. I had read some of her books, plus I meditate most mornings, so the conversation flowed naturally. It led to us following each other on Instagram. Over the next week, we continued the conversation over DM. I discovered her main hobbies were salsa dancing and experimenting with mind-altering drugs. She said she doesn't work a day job and instead co-owns and manages rental properties in the Carolinas. While it was tough to gauge her personality, she seemed impressive and intriguing enough. I had no idea about the long-term fit, but I could worry about that after seeing Rebecca naked. There was a vibe between us, and she liked my dog. Why not explore things? Rebecca suggested we smoke a joint and go on a hike one night soon. She was speaking my language, though I'm not a big hiker, and I'd step back from smoking in a big way. It's not that I don't enjoy it, it's the opposite. When I'm stressed, I'll smoke and get high like a rapper. Pre-rolls after pre-rolls, gummies on gummies. For the most part, I have my cannabis use under control. Sometimes I'll treat a stash like a fat kid treats Halloween candy. Nom 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 nom. I can go long stretches without smoking or edibles, but I'm not trying to quit cold turkey. The right cannabis and the right amount at the right time can help me relax and sink into my natural creativity, to see the forest from the trees when things feel unclear. It can also make me feel more anxious, less healthy, and too in my head if I'm partaking too often at too high a dose. My healthy adult compromise has been to enjoy low-dose edibles, tinctures, and drinks. I only want to be smoking or vaping on occasion. A hike date with Rebecca seemed like a perfect time to blaze one up. I don't need to be getting high after work every night, though, regardless of how stressful life can get. It's the adult move. Do I always act like an adult? Shit, no. We made plans to hike Wednesday night, and I suggested bringing a sativa chocolate to share. That's more of an upper. Perfect for a hike. Rebecca loved the idea and sent me a hug and kiss emoji. It was on. Okay, So you get the idea. This is what the cadence is like. Now, Dustin is a little bit ridiculous, and I think he's a fun character. And this is what we've got. This is the first section. So now you have an idea of what it's like, point of view, perspective. Let's see what Claude does with this. This is only a page and a half, and you can imagine what it is like getting into this as we continue, now understanding the voice a little bit more. And I put some notes in here on my own that I think helped. I mean, in general, I think they helped with the prompt, the micro prompt. So, like, for example, we've got good but can be punchier, present tense, obviously. Smoother transition with tense change. All good stuff to run through with the global prompt. Let's look for smoother placement of this into different parts at the beginning. So, you know, this is all stuff that I think the prompt will address. But let's see here. Let's see how this goes. So, all right, bear with me here. You know, this is writing. I'm sorry, this is editing, and you know, not every second of it is going to be super fun time. So we need to let's jump over here to the AI tools. We are going to start a new thread here in Sonnet, so you can see exactly how we're going to be doing this. And we're going to go first. I'm going to grab the prompt. Well, let me show you this too. We're going to go back over here, and we're going to take this is a whole new thread in Sonnet because we were in Opus before. And just to repeat it one more time, we're using Opus for the macro level assessment and Sonnet for the micro. So now we are starting to get into the micro. Okay, so here we go. We're dropping that in. And again, this is new for me too. So I'm learning this as we go, and we're gonna see what's working and what's not working. And I'm realizing I'm gonna have to put a little bit of this into the prompt as well. So we're gonna add this to the end here. And I'm gonna put a little bit of context here. I think it's largely there. Let me jump back over here. I'm going to put a little bit of context here in the Claude window and specify what we want the output to be, and then we'll go. So here is the prompt for editing up to 20 pages at a time of my manuscript. The output for this will be option A, full rewrite. Claude provides edited version. And then from this, I'm going to take the section that I read aloud, which is 1.5 pages, and we're going to go a little bit longer, just to down here. I don't want to do too much at once. Let's see what's happening. And we're going to say, and here is the section of the manuscript that we are going to edit. So just 2.5 pages to start. You got a sense of the tone, sense of the flow. So let's see. Okay, so I think since I cut and paste two at once, so this is interesting. I'm ready to help you edit your manuscript using the don't trip, still tripping editorial coach guidelines you provided. I understand the key priorities. Maintain first person present tense consistency. Preserve Dustin's distinctive voice. Okay, blah, blah, blah. However, I notice you mentioned here's the section of the manuscript that we are going to edit, but I don't see. So let's just say, sorry, let's start with this 2.5 chunk, page chunk. See what you do, and if it's a little overwhelmed here, let's remind it. Let's cut and paste this again. I know this seems like it's getting a little bit technical, but I am certain that once we get in the flow of this, it's gonna be much more fluid. All right, see what's happening? All right, still doing it. Okay, so this is what we just did. But before getting into this, I want to see what Claude had to say. So key editorial changes made. Tense consistency. Priority fix. Converted all narrative from past to present tense. I drove to I drive. We met. Um, that's funny. Drove from I drive. We met to we met. Okay. Maintain past tense only for explicit past references. We met a week ago. Yeah. Streamlining and compression. 20% reduction. I'm okay with that for the intro, but I think I might need to specify at certain points when it's clear that a certain section needs to be significantly reduced. I think that's where specifying this needs to come down by 40%, 50%, or whatever it happens to be. So cut redundant phrases, condense the film project description. I didn't really read that for you. Okay. So let's see what it did here. Let's move this over a bit. Okay, late July 2019. I drive from my new ad job in Encino toward Griffith Park. Okay, so yeah, did the present tense. Pushing 80 on the 5 freeway in my Accord Sport. Excited for my hiking date with Rebecca, I bob my head along to the Pusha T album Daytona. If you know, you know. The LA weather is perfect, not cold, not hot, not a cloud in the sky. The sun hasn't fully set, the sky is translucent gold, pink, and blue all at once. Magic hour in LA feels like a Jerry Bruckheimer film, and tonight I wanted to soak it all in. Also, Rebecca's a smoke show, and there's more than a chance we'll be getting naked later. We met a week ago at Intelligentsia Coffee in Silver Lake, only a dog walk from my apartment. I sat next to her outside on the patio with my senior pug Walter, who desperately wanted her croissant crumbs. Rebecca found Walter's scrunched face and droopy skin adorable. I was immediately attracted to her fit dancer body, flowing brown hair, and glowing tan skin. We struck up a conversation about the book she was reading, How to Meditate by Pema Chodron. I've read some of her books, plus I meditate most mornings. The conversation flows. See, now that's not. So that's interesting. I've read some of her books, plus I meditate most mornings. So the conversation flows naturally. So what it's doing here is it's taking present tense, but to something that happened. Well, maybe I think since it's speaking to, I got to think about this because what it's doing is it's speaking generally to the conversation between Dustin and Rebecca in a present sense, in a present tense way, but in the past. So that's something I will probably just want to edit on my own. It could even just be I've read some of her books, plus I meditate most mornings, so there's a lot for us to talk about. Like that's where there are going to be sections that you need to edit on your own. See, this is not good though. Over the next week, we continue talking over Instagram DM. Her main hobbies. Now look what I'm going to do here. This I don't like what's happening here. So over the next week, we continue talking over Instagram DM. Her main see this happened in the past, and Claude is not getting this. So I'm actually really glad that it's doing this right now, because this is where I've noticed a lot of people just want to say, screw this. AI doesn't know what it's doing. AI, this is wrong. But we need to show it what it's doing that's wrong. So let's try this out here. Over the next week, we continue talking over Instagram DM. This should be over the next week. We continued talking over Instagram DM. Her main hobbies, salsa dancing. Tough to gauge her personality, but she seems impressive. Okay, this is good. It's jumping back to present tense here. I have no idea about the long-term fit, but I can worry about after seeing her. Okay, there's a vibe between us, and she likes my dog. Did I have the word vibe? Let me see. Did I have the word vibe? Let's jump over here. Now, we're really getting in the trenches here now. We're already getting in the trenches, and I want to repeat, this is why we're calling it AI versus my novel, not a friendlier AI meets my novel, because we are going to be showing Claude what excuse me here, what the fuck it's doing wrong, because this should not be switching from this should be able to gauge that is those parts are happening in the past, and it's putting it in the present. So I'm not going to get too frustrated here, but I'm going to make it clear that what we need to do moving forward. And this, again, this might mean that we need to rejigger the prompt here and there, but we're going to get great results. We're going to see good stuff, but we're going to also see bad stuff that's going to be frustrating. This is human versus AI to get the best result. No, I'm playing. This is going to be working with Claude and letting Claude know where it has erred and what we need to adjust in order to best move forward. But let's see. Yeah, okay, I did say vibe here. All right. I don't know. Like, people are saying vibe coding. Part of me does not like the word vibe. It just feels a little easy. It feels a little just like, okay, I'm going to revert to saying vibe. But I guess it is in the vernacular. That can always change. So there's a vibe between us, and she likes my dog Walter. Why not explore things? I think we need to jump back to the AI tools, and there are a lot of instances in when, see, like right here, Rebecca suggests we smoke a joint. See, this happened in the past. She's speaking my language. Okay. We need to reprompt Claude here. You failed to distinguish between present and past tense regarding when Dustin, the main character, is speaking about Rebecca. He's largely speaking to events that have already occurred, so this needs to be in past tense. All right, let's give it some examples so it can better understand. So we met a week ago at Intelligentsia Coffee in Silver Lake, only a dog walk from my apartment. I sat next to her outside on the patio with my senior pug Walter, who desperately wanted her croissant crumbs. So this is good. This is good. Over the next week, let's say, here's where it starts to go off the rails. Over the next week, we continue talking over her main hobby, salsa dancing, experimenting with mind-altering drugs. She doesn't work a day job. Instead, Oak co-owns and manages rental properties in the Carolinas. Tough to gauge her personality, but she seems impressive and intriguing enough. I have no idea about the long-term fit. So I want to see just to what degree we need to specify. So I think up to here will be a good example. Let's take a closer look at, see, this is why I think giving AI 20 pages at a time to rewrite is probably not a good idea. I think this 2.5 page to start is great because we're not giving it too much at a time. And look, I'm a psycho who wrote 916 pages, but I think a lot of people are going to be working with significantly less than that. So, you know, if you have a 200 page manuscript or a 100-page script and you need to break it down 2.5 to 5 pages at a time, that's still pretty good. And as you get things more dialed in with the prompting, with how the language model succeeds and fails, then you can jump up from there. But I will say I am really glad that we only gave this 2.5 pages to start, because we're going to get a better sense of how to work with this language model as we go. And I'm confident that it is going to be smoother, but I'm going to have to do some work on the prompt aside from just what we're doing here. But let's just stay in it. This is, I think, where it's really getting interesting in terms of let's see what it does with this specific passage. So let's take a closer look at this section, and we need to better dial in what should be in present tense because it's happening now versus past tense because it's Dustin reflecting on what recently happened. Okay, so let's say please apply this to the entire passage. And now there's another thing that I'm noticing here. See this? M dash, M dash, M dash, M dash. You know what I don't like? Too many M dashes from AI. I don't mind an M dash here and there. I really don't. I think when it's used well, it's fine. But one of the surest tells of AI writing is excessive M dash use. And Claude actually doesn't do this as I'm getting heated a little bit here because I can't stand this shit. Claude doesn't do this as much as ChatGPT, which is the worst offender with M dashes. But they just throw M dashes in over and over and over. And this is where it's our job as a human to say, yo, don't give me too many M dashes. So what I'm going to say here is let's limit M dashes to 1 per page. Or only where most appropriate. I mean, as I'm going through something and I think that it could flow better or 2 sentences could be combined with an M dash, I'll do that. I'll do that. But what I don't want to see are M dashes all over the place like someone, you know, spilled toothpicks on the floor. I don't want that. Okay, so we've got this reprompt here. You saw how quickly Claude was able to take a section that probably took me an hour and a half or whatever to write. And let's see what it does with this section now. Look at this. Look at this. So as frustrating as it can be working with this, its power is insane. Okay, so let's look through what it did. Key tense corrections made. Past tense, reflecting on what happened. We continued talking over Instagram DM, past event. She didn't work a day job. She seemed impressive. I had no idea about the long-term fit. There was a vibe between us. Rebecca suggested, okay, now there was a vibe between us. See, now this is interesting because I had no idea about the long-term fit. That should still, oop, that is a current reflection. Is a present uncertainty. Okay, there was a vibe between us. Now this is interesting because this could be him speaking to about, thinking back on when they were actually together. Yes, there was a vibe between us. Or this could be him speaking about the present interaction. So I think either way that could function. Rebecca suggested we smoke a joint. Past suggested. She was speaking my language. That's good. We made plans to hike. That's good. Rebecca loved the idea. Past. I drive for my new ad job. Current action. I turn off Los Feliz Boulevard. Current action. I feel a pang of jealousy. I didn't read these parts yet, but I'm a senior. Yes, okay. Removed excessive M dashes throughout. Kept only the most essential one for the weather description. Replaced others with commas, periods, or though for better flow. The corrected version now properly distinguishes between Dustin's present moment experiences, driving, arriving, current feelings, and his reflections on past events, meeting Rebecca. Okay, now let's let Claude know that this is good work, but not 100% there. I had no idea about the long-term fit. Past uncertainty is a present tense reflection. So let's let it know that. And then I think there was a vibe between us. I think this should be present tense as well. There was a vibe between us. Past observation should also be present tense since they've been continuing to communicate. So they met recently. They're continuing to communicate over text. They're about to meet up. So I think he's speaking to the vibe in present tense, not past tense. So let's let Claude know. There you go. Look, it's redoing this. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so let's see what it said. I have no idea about the long-term fit. This is Dustin's current uncertainty as he heads to the date. There is a vibe between us. This describes the ongoing dynamic between them, not just a past observation. You're absolutely right. These reflect Dustin's present state of mind and ongoing feelings as he drives to meet Rebecca, not just a past observation. The vibe continues to exist between them through their ongoing communication, and his uncertainty about long-term compatibility is a current reflection, not something confined to the past. The narrative now properly captures the temporal flow. Past events, meeting, conversations, planning versus present emotions and ongoing dynamics as Dustin heads to their date. So this whole thing, it's clear that you're working with this genius computer brain when you see this immediately. But again, it's not perfect. It comes down to knowing what you want. And in this case, we're flipping this to first person present tense, but there are still a lot of instances where the character is reflecting on events that have happened in the past. And it can be the recent past, it can be the far back in the past, but it's still the past, and we need to make sure that this understands that. So let's get into what it actually came up with, and then we're going to dial in how to better address all of this moving forward. Okay, so late July. Let me grab some beverages here. I need to. All right, we got coffee, we got water. So you saw what I had before. Bring it back up once more. It starts with I drove. The LA weather was perfect. Look, I had an M dash here too. Let me see how many M dashes I had here. I had 2 M dashes on this page. I think two a page is maximum. And I'm not going to get mad about 2 M dashes on a page, but when it starts to get into 5, 6, more than that, that's where we got to tighten this up, because it reads like AI. So yeah, we've got a combination of present and past tense. The character is driving along the 5 freeway, which is a major freeway in Los Angeles. It goes all the way down to San Diego. It goes up north as well, but this is this indicative of Los Angeles. But yeah, let's jump back. Now we've got the Claude version here. Let's do it. So, late July 2019. I drive from my new ad job in Encino toward Griffith Park, pushing 80 on the 5 freeway in my Accord Sport. Excited for my hiking date with Rebecca, I bob my head along to the Pusha T album Daytona. If you know, you know. The LA weather is perfect. Not cold, not hot, not a cloud in the sky. I like the flow of that. That is exactly the same as what I had, but I do like the flow of that. The sun hasn't fully set, and the sky is translucent gold, pink, and blue all at once. Magic hour in LA feels like a Jerry Bruckheimer film, and tonight I want to soak it all in. So this is doing a good job so far. Also, Rebecca's a smoke show, and there's more than a chance we'll be getting naked later. We met a week ago at Intelligentsia Coffee in Silver Lake, only a dog walk from my apartment. I sat next to her outside on the patio with my senior pug, Walter, who desperately wanted her croissant crumbs. Rebecca found Walter's scrunched face and droopy skin adorable. I was immediately attracted to her fit dancer body, flowing brown hair, and glowing tan skin. We struck up a conversation about the book she was reading, How to Meditate by Pema Chodron. I'd read some of her books, plus I meditate most mornings, so the conversation flowed naturally. Over the next week, we continued talking over Instagram DM. I discovered her main hobbies, salsa dancing and experimenting with mind-altering drugs. Now, in my version, I did not have that colon. That's interesting. She didn't work a day job, but instead co-owned and managed rental properties in the Carolinas. It was tough to gauge her personality, but she seemed impressive and intriguing enough. I have no idea about the long-term fit, but I can worry about that after seeing Rebecca naked. Now, Dustin's a little ridiculous. He's not going to be for everyone, but this is the character. There is a vibe between us, and she liked my dog. Okay, so this is a little clunky here. There is a vibe between us, and she liked my dog. Let's say, getting better. This reads clunky. This reads clunky, though. She likes the dog. So Rebecca suggested we smoke a joint and go on a hike. She was speaking my language. I'm not a big hiker, and I'd step back from smoking in a big way. Let's see. This should be Ive. Now, let's also keep in mind that while this is only going to get better through training this and through coming up with a tighter prompt, a lot of this is going to have to be done by me. I mean, there are still going to be parts where it's going to be easier for me to just go in and change it. expecting to press a button and suddenly AI is, let me pop out here. Expecting to press a button and have AI turn 916 pages into 446 or whatever it's going to be, going from past tense to present tense throughout, making the whole thing entertaining and punchy. Maybe there's a way to do that and it's just going to spit it all out, but that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is not feel overwhelmed with this massive rewrite. That's really it. I want to be able to tap into this intelligence to be able to wrangle this and dial this in and get this edit done faster and make this great. And now someone might say, why don't you just do this on your own? And you know what? I might realize that there are parts that I'd rather do on my own. But I think at the very least, getting the macro assessment of these are the things that you need to change and having that list collected and then figuring out how to best apply that to the text that we're working with is going to put me at a place where I'm further along and able to do these edits by hand, not by hand, but without AI at a more focused place. So the goal is not to have AI do everything. It's about having AI help focus. And then I decide, okay, all right, Claude, all right, ChatGPT, you've done enough here. Now let me go in and do that. And it's like, all right, you just in general, it's just like people can be so extreme about, see, AI can't get this past tense to present tense right. It sucks. It's like, no, it doesn't suck. It's not human. It doesn't know what I'm trying to accomplish exactly, even if I'm giving it very detailed prompts. So and another thing to consider is that it's typically not just in the reprompting one time, but in the third prompt or the third, you get you reprompt it once, it gives you results. You prompt it again, it gives you results, and it's still not going to be totally right. And you prompt it again, and then it's going to get more and more focused. And it might seem a little bit tedious right now, but we're dialing this in. We're going to get this to a place where the micro level prompt is going to adapt. We're going to be able to feed that in, and we're going to be able to apply that to chunks. Maybe they're 2.5, maybe they're 5, maybe we'll get to a place where it can be 15, 20. And I'd rather start smaller. I'm so glad that we're only doing 2.5 pages at a time here. But if that's all it is, that's cool. So let's jump back over here. There's a vibe between us, and she liked my dog. Why not explore things? This reads clunky. She likes his dog. I'd step back from smoking in a big way. Should be I've. It's not that I don't enjoy it. It's the opposite. When I'm stressed, I smoke and get high like a rapper. Pre-rolls after pre-rolls, gummies on gummies. For the most part, I have my cannabis use under control. Sometimes I treat a stash like a fat kid treats Halloween candy. Nom nom nom. I can go long stretches without smoking or edibles, but I'm not trying to quit cold turkey. The right cannabis in the right amount of time helps me relax and sink into my natural creativity. See the forest from the trees when things feel unclear. So this is another thing. Some people might say like, oh, you have some sections of this that are not complete sentences. I'm okay with that. There are going to be some sentences that are not complete sentences because this is the inner workings of this character's brain, and they're not always going to be incomplete sentence. So that's how it is. Now, let's keep going. It can also make me feel more anxious, less healthy, and two in my head if I'm partaking too often in a high dose. My healthy adult compromise, enjoy low dose edibles, tinctures, and drinks. I only want to smoke or vape on occasion. A hike date with Rebecca seems like a perfect time to blaze one up. I don't need to be getting high after work every night, regardless of how stressful life gets. It's the adult move. Do I always act like an adult? Shit, no. We made plans to hike Wednesday night, and I suggested bringing a sativa chocolate to share. That's more of an upper, perfect for a hike. Rebecca loved the idea and sent me a hug and kiss emoji. Sent me hug and kiss emojis. It was on. Okay, so that did a good job of taking something that happened in the recent past, and then bring it right, boom, right back to the present. I turn off Los Feliz Boulevard toward Griffith Park and park behind. I haven't read this yet, so let's see what it's doing. And turn on park behind Rebecca's silver BMW convertible. I hadn't seen her car before that was slick and nicer than my Honda. She had to be living comfortably off her passive real estate income, and I feel a pang of jealousy. Okay, that's good. She had to be living comfortably off her passive real estate income, and I feel a pang of jealousy. Now, that's not to say that this is going to be the final sentence, but it's getting the nuance of what I'm trying to do here. It's getting closer to that in terms of had to be living and I feel. So it's speaking to the totality of her existence. Or maybe it should just be has to be living comfortably off her. Okay, this is interesting. I hadn't seen her car before that was slick and nicer than my Honda. She has to be living comfortably. I might have spoken too soon here. Let's ask. Let's ask Claude. This is. Let's see. See, this is why it's a rough draft, and this is why we're seeing what's possible here. And also, I I think first person present tense is tricky. It really is, but ultimately I think it makes things feel more immediate. So this is training me as much as anything to get into the flow of this. So we made plans to hike. So I turn off Los Feliz Boulevard. So we're going to ask it about that. Which is more, sorry, let's move this over here. Okay, so let's jump back here too. She had to be living comfortably off her passive real estate income, and I feel a pang of jealousy. Or should that be, she has to be living comfortably off her passive real estate income, and I feel a pang of jealousy. Maybe it should be has, but let's see what Claude says. So let's keep going first. I'm a senior video producer at an agency which mostly consists of writing and wrangling together creatives. I've directed some commercials and a couple indie features that were fun to make, but maybe not the best investments. Do I live on the streets? Negative. Am I rolling in cash? Also negative. Maybe there's an alternative path where I started selling scripts when I was younger, or my first feature, a rom-com set in college, was more successful at film festivals and blew me up as a filmmaker. That didn't happen, but I'm not hurting. I just started this new higher paying job after jumping from working in-house at a streaming company to the agency side. Living expenses covered. I'm also doing my thing creatively and have a rough cut of new This might be a little too expository. I'm also doing my thing creatively and I have a rough cut of a new feature I wrote and directed. Friday to Thursday is the working title. I was inspired to write about a man and woman who match on one of the apps, flirt over text, then meet for coffee. There's strong attraction, they go for a walk, things get flirtier, they meet for dinner that night. They drink and dance in the neighborhood, run into friends, end up spending the night together. This is so rambling. And the book does tend to do this. I mean, or the current state of the manuscript does tend to do this, but this is where we're gonna figure out what to keep and what to cut. Because I don't think that Claude cut quite enough here. And we're gonna talk to it a little bit about that. They're happy to see each other in the morning, get brunch, and the conversation takes an uncomfortable turn. The movie follows where the relationship goes over the next week. The idea was to make something funny and romantic, but also realistic, based off my own experiences with app dating. The female lead is a composite of different women I've dated. The male lead is pretty much me, only if you were a comedian, aspiring actor, instead of real life writer and director. In real life, I don't like being on camera, so it was easy to gain distance between me and the character. Also, my name is Dustin with a D, and the character is Justin with a J. I felt inspired after watching Richard Linklater's Before films and wanted to shoot something in that vein. At the same time, I discovered Curb Your Enthusiasm shoots entire pages off 8 to 10 page outlines. I like stories about romance that feel real, and the less traditional, the better. I felt confident I could assemble a cast and crew to bring the vision to life, but the first cut isn't wowing me and needs work. The ending is far from happy. though maybe that would make it great. What do I know about love anyway, as much as I know about rental properties? Okay, so you get a little bit more of a sense of how the character's brain can kind of go all over the place, overthinking stuff that he's doing. And I think the challenge is this is how it is in a way, but it's also, we don't want to make this boring. We don't want to make this feel too expository. We don't want to make it feel like it's taking people too far away from what's happening in the present moment. So let's also get into how we can tighten this up a little bit more. Let's think about this. Going back to the provided prompt, we want to cut things down significantly. I think that elements here are feeling too expository. Let's look for ways to cut this down. Actually, let's ask first, what percentage of the initial passage did you cut down? Did you make this 20? I'd like to make it at least 20% shorter. Now I think once we get into longer scenes, we can say this whole section needs to be 40% shorter. But I feel like this initial part, if we can get it about 20% shorter, cool. So let's see. All right. Claude is thinking. Another thing to keep in mind is that it's a different way of working, and there can be elements that are frustrating as you're in it, because you can have an idea of, this is what I want the output to be, and it's doing something else, and you need to go back and be like, no, I want you to do this is what I want you to do. And you tell it what you want it to do, and most of the time it does it, or maybe it does it 81% of the way. Then you have to clean up the remaining 19%. And it is a different way of working, but the thing is, I would say in about an hour of doing this today, we're going to have the first 3 pages or so at a place that's better. And that's not saying that it's going to be what I ultimately end up keeping, but a large part of this whole process is to get everything tightened up and into a better place. And it doesn't mean that what we're going to be doing here is the absolute final version of the book. It's more about shaping and polishing. And this is going to undoubtedly help with all of that. But we are still figuring out the best way to work with all of this, or I am still figuring out the best way to work with all of this, because this is the new version of Claude. We're testing the capabilities here, and also I am figuring out just what I want to keep and what I want to cut from this book. Even in a non-AI world, I'm deciding ultimately what I want to keep and what I want to cut. So these prompts that I've created are not written in stone. I think we're going to get into this, and we're going to find large sections where it's like, you know what, these 3 pages are not necessary. And or these 3 pages can be summed up into 1 paragraph. So to be able to take those 3 pages and essentially tell Claude that, and this is after providing the context of what we're trying to achieve with the prompt, which again is flexible. That process is going to be sped up rapidly. But let's go back into what Claude just did with the latest passage here. So, this is cool. Okay. Major streamlining achieved. 25% reduction. Key fixes made. Tense. She likes my dog. I've stepped back. Present perfect. Okay. She has to be living. Present inference. Flow. Smooth. There is a vibe between us and she likes my dog. Okay. That is, again, this is not to say this is going to be the final version that ultimately is going to be printed and read aloud over audiobook. We are taking this one step at a time, given the direction that I want to go. Significant cuts made. Cannabis philosophy reduction. Cut the verbose middle paragraph about quitting cold turkey, forest from the trees metaphor, and repetitive adult behavior explanations. Totally. See, now, is it annoying that Claude has to be reprompted after putting this micro prompt in here? Yes. Yes, it is. But I know what I want, and I'm spelling it out from the beginning. And as we work, the more we, in this thread alone, it's going to get more dialed in. So do I wish that I could do the entire novel in one thread and it's just going to save everything and understand everything from beginning to end? Yes. Yes, I do wish that. And I think at some point, probably not too far off, AI is going to be able to do all that. Claude's going to be able to do all that. But right now, threads fill up. You've got to keep in mind that this is going to fill up and you're going to have to jump over to a new thread. So how do you best prepare yourself for that moment? And we're going to jump into that in a second after we read through this full passage. So it cut down the cannabis philosophy reduction. It cut down exposition. Okay, she didn't work a day job, but instead she owns rental properties. She co-owns rental properties. Film project compression. Cut redundant explanation about app dating experiences. This is great. This is basically indicating that it did what I ultimately wanted in the initial prompt after having to tell it again. Redundant details removed and intriguing. Preserved essential elements. This is good. Dustin's voice and humor. Nom nom nom. Shit no. Sexual energy and attraction. LA authenticity and locations. Character defining cannabis relationship. Film project. Crucial for character establishment. See, that's the balance. There's certain elements that need to be kept, but then it's a matter of, to what degree are you weaving them in and at what point? You don't want to feel like you're going off the rails with exposition and too much setup. And as I was writing this, I was largely thinking, I'm going to come back and edit this. So that's what we're doing now. I wanted to keep moving 1,000 pages at a time. That's how I would think about it. Like, I want to get 1,000 pages done either today or this weekend, and then worry about the next 1,000 pages. So now we are going back and we are dealing with that mess that I set up for myself. So, but at the same time, we've got a lot of material to work with. Okay. So it reduced this from 850 words down to 640 words. Let's check it out. I think we're going to go a little bit over an hour and a half today, but that's okay. So I drive from my new ad job in Encino toward Griffith Park, pushing 80 on the 5 freeway in my Accord Sport. I'm not going to read it all. The LA weather is perfect. There's an M dash there, but it's okay. Not cold, not hot, not a cloud in the sky. Magic hour in LA feels like a Jerry Bruckheimer film, and tonight I want to soak it all in. Okay, that's cool. We met a week ago at Intelligentsia Coffee in Silver Lake. I sat next to her outside on the patio with my senior pug, Walter. I was immediately, okay, that's the same. We struck up a conversation about the book she was reading. Cool. I discovered her main hobbies. This is cool. Tough to gauge her personality, but she seemed impressive enough. I have no idea about the long-term fit, but I can worry about that after seeing Rebecca naked. Now, again, people might not like Dustin. They might not like him at all. But I think this is a very believable Silver Lake character, and it's what it is. So there's a vibe between us, and she likes my dog. Why not explore things? Rebecca suggested we smoke a joint, go on a hike. She was speaking my language, though I'm not a big hiker and I've stepped back from smoking in a big way. When I'm stressed, I smoke and get high like a rapper. Pre-rolls after pre-rolls, gummies on gummies. For the most part, I have my cannabis use under control. Sometimes I treat a stash like a fat kid treats Halloween candy. Nom 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 nom. The right cannabis and the right amount at the right time helps me relax and sink into my natural creativity. It can also make me feel more anxious and too in my head if I'm partaking too often at too high a dose. Okay. My healthy adult compromise enjoy low dose edibles, tinctures, and drinks. I only want to smoke or vape on occasion. A hike date with Rebecca seems like a perfect time to blaze one up. Do I always act like an adult? Shit, no. We made plans to hike Wednesday night, and I suggested bringing sativa chocolate to share. Rebecca loved the idea and sent me a hug and kiss emojis. It was on. I turned off Los Feliz Boulevard toward Griffith Park and behind Rebecca's silver BMW convertible. I hadn't seen her car before, though it was slick and nice. Okay. That should not be was. She has to be living comfortably off her passive real estate income, and I feel a pang of jealousy. I'm a senior video producer at an agency, which mostly consists of... Now this is definitely tighter. I mean, I gotta figure out just how much of this I want to keep. So let's see. Let's see here. Let's just say shouldn't be was. Now, also, provide an honest assessment of whether the thoughts regarding filmmaking feel too expository and clunky. Okay, so fix that tense. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The filmmaking thoughts are too expository and clunky. Feels like a backstory dump. We're getting a complete plot synopsis of his film rather than organic character revelation. He's supposed to be excited about seeing Rebecca naked, but suddenly he's doing a film school presentation in his head. I love this. This is great. Lacks Dustin's natural voice. It reads more like a logline than his internal monologue. We go from jealousy about her BMW to detailed film explanation. What's working? The connection between his dating experiences and the film concept, the self-deprecating ending, what do I know about love anyway? The Justin detail shows his neurotic attention to detail. Suggested fix. Cut it down to 2 to 3 sentences max. Something like, I'm also working on a new feature about app dating gone wrong. The first cut isn't wowing me, but maybe that's because the ending is far from happy. Look at this. It's picking up my tone. What do I know about love anyway? About as much as I know about rental properties. All right, let's put that into, let's do it. Now again, I can always come back and edit this further. So that cut out another 150 words. Let's see what it says. This is good. It doesn't get into the full plot. I just started this new higher paying job after jumping from working in-house at a streaming company to the agency side. Living expenses covered. I'm also doing my thing creatively and have a rough cut of a new feature about app dating gone wrong. First cut isn't wowing me, but maybe that's because the ending is far from happy. What do I know about love anyway? About as much as I know about rental properties. Approximately 35% short. This is 35% shorter than the original, hitting well above your 20% target while preserving all the essential voice, humor, and character beats. Now, I have not gone in and done, full line by line edits here. No, but let's see. Let's keep this in mind. Say we cut 35% of 916 pages, right? That's going to bring it down to less than 600 pages. That's the idea here. And we just did this in the first almost 3 pages. We just cut, or 2.5 pages, we just cut down to about 1.5 pages. And it took a little bit of time. I think this is going to happen faster. And also, writing and rewriting takes time. It takes time. So that's just a part of the equation here. So let's give some positive reinforcement to Claude. This is what we're trying to do to get this to be about 35% shorter on the whole. Some parts can be 20% shorter. Other parts can be totally cut. 50%, 50% shorter, etc. It really depends on the specific scenes and sequences. This is a step in the right direction. Now what I'm going to do, I'll keep in mind, I have all of this saved. The doc that I'm working out of is completely saved. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to jump over to writing. And we start off at rental properties. So look at this. We went from, let's just check it out here again. We have all of this. We're going all the way down to rental properties. Also, don't trust AI about when it comes down to word counts. Don't. So this is 1,113 of 2,000. I don't even want to think about how many words are in here. Okay. So 1,100 words approximately. Now keep in mind, I have all this saved in another document. This is the editing doc. So I can always bring this back up. Now we're going to do this. This too. $619. We went from, I think it was a little over 1,100, I believe 1,113, down to 619. So that's about, don't trust, don't trust AI's numbers when it comes to word counts or character counts ever. I should have mentioned that earlier. It doesn't do that well, but you can always highlight in Google and figure it out for yourself. So we just cut this by about 40% plus, 45%. And again, I can always go through this. I can tighten this up. I can look back at what I had previously if I felt like anything essential got cut. But I don't feel like anything essential got cut here. And baseline, if we can do this, literally, if we can go through this entire, let me see here. We could go through this entire manuscript and just do this. Just take 1,100 word sections and bring it down to 600 something. That's going to get this significantly shorter. And AI is great for this. We did this pretty quickly. And I don't even think we're getting the best results out of it yet, by far. So I know we're running over time a little bit here, but this is what I need to do this because I'm going to be doing this on my own regardless. So let's jump back here. So we have this positive reinforcement here. This is what we're trying to do to get this to be about 35% shorter on the whole. 35% shorter, screw it, or more on the whole. Some parts can be 20% shorter, other parts can be totally cut, 50% shorter, etc. It really depends on the specific scenes and sequences. This is a step in the right direction, so good work. Now, given this is where, okay, so check this out. This I think is going to help everything that we're doing moving forward. So just check this out. Now, given the work we've just done here, would you make any changes to the prompt, the micro prompt that I provided? Please let me know if you need me to provide it again. Sometimes you gotta talk to it like it can be an overwhelmed genius sometimes. So I don't know. Maybe I should, but let's see. Please let me know if you need me to provide it again in order to best assess. Okay, this is cool. So it is offering suggestions for the micro prompt based on the work we just did here. So additions I'd recommend: tense guidelines enhancement, distinguish carefully between present moment, actions, all of that sounds good. Exposition detection, add to streamlining guidelines, flag exposition dumps that feel like backstory rather than organic character revelation. If it reads like a synopsis, logline, or academic explanation rather than Dustin's natural internal voice, cut or compress drastically. This is great. See, it's getting more dialed in. Compression target, modified. Target 25 to 40% reduction overall with flexibility by scene type. Some sequences may need only 20% cuts, others may require 50. Flow momentum, add. Yes, this is great. Now, do you need me to provide the micro prompt again, or can you provide me with a new one to save? Here we go. I can provide you with an enhanced version based on your original prompt and our editing work. Here's the refined micro editing prompt. So this is what we used to warm up the work for today. The work that we did today is now going back into this to make this smarter. And it's including the notes that I had here for the first 183 pages from the macro. And look at this. M- usage limits. Flexible compression targets 25 to 40% overall. Now we might need to adapt that, because if it, like I don't want it to go in just hacking away at everything. But if it starts to feel like it's not taking enough out, then we can say this, hey, this sequence needs to be reduced by 50% or whatever it is. But I think 25 to 40% feels like a good range to start with. Okay. See all that? Now we've got a stronger micro prompt to work with. Okay, we are running long here. All right. This is it's a lot to take in, or maybe it makes total sense, but I will say I'm glad that we only worked on this much at a time. But baseline is that rather painlessly, I think, we were able to take 1,100 words and condense it down to about 600. That's the core of what we did. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to dial things in. We're going to strip away even more. We're going to find areas to make the whole story flow better. But for this part, I'm pretty happy with the way that the character's voice is coming across. Someone else might read this and be like, I don't like this character. I don't like the flow of this. And that's fine. Not everything is for everyone. That's how it is. But I know the audience for this book. I think it's an audience that's a little bit younger than me. And that's fine. Or my age. So we shall see. Can always make additional edits. But right now we are trying to whittle this down. And we just whittled down 40-something%. So let's call it for today. We have a more defined micro prompt. We're going to continue to define the workflow. But yeah, right now we made some edits and this section is flowing tighter. And we're going to do the same thing moving forward. And ultimately, this is going to be not so much of a beast of a manuscript. So thanks for tuning in. Again, happy Father's Day to all of those who celebrate. If you're a father, if you have a father, make sure if you have a dad, give them a call, get them a gift. And if you are a dad, really, it's I imagine there's nothing greater in life that you can have. I'm just rambling here. See, this is it. I just ramble on, and I need a large language model to type me up. But that's it for today. All right, take care.